So, what's it like to be bipolar? I mean, what does it feel like to actually be inside the body of someone with bipolar disorder? Well, I've got a really great analogy I came up with that covers at least the basics, and it might help people who aren't bipolar to actually get the situation a little better. And it's really important to know that everyone experiences bipolar disorder differently. It's a really subjective experience, kind of like a to each their own kind of thing. Now, it might be easier to picture bipolar as something that affects the central mood computer, so to speak, of the brain. Kind of like a computer virus that wreaks havoc with our brain's code and not being able to do very much about it. So the hippocampus is actually the part of our brain that's been linked to bipolar disorder, and it's basically responsible for mood and memory. So what happens when this part of our body's central computer gets a computer virus, so to speak? And remember, all this is a metaphor, of course. Bipolar is an illness, not a virus. But it takes over our brains in a really similar way, like complete control. And it can cause us to experience a slew of emotions that are more intense than anyone can possibly imagine. And this is because it's literally like written into the code or the programming of our brains. The computer just does what it's told and reacts in primitive ways that have been ingrained in us since the beginning of time. Things like fear, sadness, anger, happiness, euphoria, sleep patterns, and even sexual or eating desires or a lack thereof. So for those of you out there that are lucky enough to experience emotions in a standard way, it can be really hard to wrap your brain around how intense and how real these emotions get when a bipolar Trojan computer virus just takes us over. So remember when you were younger and you had your first crush, like fell in love for the first time, and I'm talking where you were bouncing off the walls and floating on clouds, like totally sprung, where it was dominating all of your thoughts and you felt absolutely invincible. Now, what happened when your parents told you, oh, it's just puppy love, it won't last, or I forbid you to see that person? Did you listen? Oh, hell no, because the feelings were so intense and so real. And your entire soul is basically telling you that this is the number one most important, most intense thing happening in your life. Remember that? Okay, well, that's what some forms of mania are like to us, basically. And when a partner, friend, or family member says, snap out of it, or what's wrong with you, it's just going to hurt or upset us, like when our parents said, you're not going to see that person anymore. And of course, it's not going to make a difference. You just can't get through to us because the feelings are that real, and even stronger, actually, if you can believe it. It's just that most people's brains respond normally, and there's almost like a cap of what most people can feel or experience. Well, not with us. Our brain just keeps going and going, and it gets more intense until, as a human being, we literally reach a breaking point. And the breaking point for us is basically when we crash. It would be like walking around the corner and seeing that first crush or the first love of your life kissing someone else. First, you get that cold rush and that sinking feeling in your stomach where you almost feel just sick from the sensation. And then you start crying without any way to stop it, and you literally feel like dead inside, like someone just ripped out your heart and punched you in the stomach. You just want to run home screaming and slam the door to your room and hide under the covers forever. Welcome to bipolar depression. And the crappy part is it can last for days, weeks, or even months, and getting progressively worse. It would be like having to sit there and watch them kiss again and again and again, like a bad movie stuck in a loop. And then the paranoia kicks in, and it's like every corner you walk around, there's a 50% chance that they might be there kissing again. So if you can, for just a minute, imagine that, and then take the volume and turn it way up. Turn it up so much to where it actually blows out your eardrums, like that intense. Like I said, our brains don't have an off switch to regulate things like most people, and the feelings just go beyond what anyone can handle. And that's why 15 to 20% of people who are bipolar end up killing themselves. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? Now, here's another crazy part. People with bipolar who cycle rapidly like myself can wake up in the morning feeling like beyond the ecstasy of our first crush. And by the next day or even later the same day, that sickening, gut-wrenching pain and depression hits full swing. And imagine living like that every single moment of every single day for the rest of your life. Now, would you be able to go to work every day, or would you be able to handle a relationship with 4 kids like everyone else? Now, I'm not exaggerating. If anything, I'm understating what it's like, because it's really hard to even put into words how intense and how real these feelings are. They're that real because the brain is producing the same chemical reactions as you would feel if you were in love or the worst heartbreak you've ever experienced, but amplified, like way beyond that, and it's something that's out of our control. So no wonder it's confusing to friends, family, or people around us. I mean, it would be like getting married or going to Disneyland, and all of a sudden, bam, we get punched in the stomach with depression just knocking the wind out of our life. Or we could have just lost our job and wake up on some dreary, rainy winter day and feel like having sex like jackrabbits and throwing the best party of our entire lives. It's the extremes of things that makes up bipolar disorder. Now that I've basically painted a scene, keep in mind that these are just 2 of the many extreme emotions that we experience. I mean, I haven't even touched on things like anger or bloodshot rage, horribly intense addiction, the most powerful fear or panic a human can even experience, and so much more. And again, I'll remind you that we feel all of these emotions at a level of intensity that words just can't do justice. Yes, it is really that bad for some of us. So I guess the golden question now is, well, what do we do about it? Is there a way to make it stop? Well, sure there is. Several of them actually, but it's not as easy as most people would think. Just like it's hard for them to imagine how intense living inside of a bipolar body can be. So let's go back to the computer analogy for a minute. And remember again, these are all metaphors. Bipolar is a serious, incurable mental illness, not just a computer virus. So our central computer gets a horrible, damaging virus, and it just starts ripping through files without our control, affecting anyone around us who uses the computer, like family, partners, friends. Well, the first step is figuring out that it's a virus causing the damage in the first place. So what do? We take it to a qualified computer doctor and get a definitive diagnosis. And it might take several tries to find a doctor that does enough digging until they actually find it. And then once we know what kind of malicious code our central computer or brain is dealing with, the only way to remedy that is by using antivirus software, which in our case would be medications. And it might take a while to find the right software or medication that's compatible with our operating system, so to speak. We can't just run the software once and say the computer's fixed and go back to our daily routine, because we're just going to keep getting more computer viruses unless we use the antivirus software or meds every day to basically protect our system. And honestly, that's still not enough. People around us need to be educated about how the new bipolar software works, and so they know how to use it without errors, basically. And this means family members or partners researching bipolar disorder, like reading books or taking an online bipolar computer language class to help them understand us better. We have to work as a team, basically, to make sure that we don't forget our meds or to run a virus scan every day and see how the system's running, to check in, because we know from experience, if we miss a big one, we know how much damage and how much havoc it can cause. And honestly, that's still not enough. We also need constant updates and new tools to keep us virus-free, which of course would be things like cognitive behavioral therapy or just therapy in general. And lastly, we cannot mix drugs and alcohol into the system, or it'll either overload, short circuit, or crash. Just like spilling alcohol all over the inside of a computer or plugging it into a power source that's way too much, it's going to crash eventually, guaranteed. So that, my polar warriors, is bipolar disorder in a computer nutshell. It's really hard for others to understand the depth of suffering and intensity of emotions that we experience without having any control over them, and without a comprehensive and well-rounded approach to treatment, it's going to keep getting worse. If you know someone who's bipolar, I really urge you to be gentle and have a little bit of sympathy with how hard it is to live like this every day. And I also encourage you to please be patient when our computers crash or overload, because it is so very real to us. Like I said, this is our reality. We cannot tell the difference, and often we don't have control over it sometimes. We might say or do things that you don't understand or that are even hurtful, but try to see it as a glitch in the code that just needs some care and treatment to start running smoothly again. Try not to take it personally if possible. Please help me spread awareness and understanding about bipolar disorder so we can break the stigmas out there and help people get the life-saving treatment that they need and deserve. Share this video, get it out there. Together we really all can make a difference in the lives of other people who need it the most. My channel has lots more great stuff for people that are struggling with bipolar disorder, and videos like this one for families, friends, and partners too. So please consider interacting with the channel by subscribing to show your support for what I'm doing. And it's also another way to help the channel grow and to get it out there to more people who could benefit from it. Anyways, thank you for watching. Stay well, take care, and hope to see you back here soon for another Polar Warrior experience.